in business and in life, we don't get what we deserve, we get what we negotiate. If we haven't met yet, my name is Patrick, and I'm sharing the lessons I'm learning through my entrepreneurial journey. In this video, I'm gonna share with you the 3 biggest principles that'll help you negotiate a salary raise, price of a car, and anything really. If we don't learn how to negotiate well, we are setting ourselves up to under-earn, overspend, and really not make the most of our life's potential. If we do though, we stand to live a life better than we deserve. Over the last 12 weeks, I've taken one of the most popular classes, negotiations, at one of the top business schools, Wharton, with one of the best professors, Gus Cooney, a Harvard PhD. We learned a ton of tactics and strategies, and then learn how to apply them in simulated negotiations. These included job offers, contract negotiations, real estate deals, company acquisitions, you name it, we went through it. So I'm gonna try to condense everything we learned in all the simulations and through the 12 weeks of class into 3 key principles and how you can act on them. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I'll share with you a tactical checklist to help you prepare for any negotiation. So number 1 was the biggest takeaway from the class for me, which is know your BATNA.
What does that even mean?
BATNA stands for Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. It's basically your plan B if there's no agreement to the negotiation. So this is important because you need to know going into the negotiation not to agree to something that's worse or the same as something you already have. So before I left for my MBA, I had a little negotiation with the leaders of my office to sponsor my tuition for school. There's a deal where they can pay for my tuition if I go back and work for them for a couple more years. So I had a meeting with a bunch of leaders from the firm. It lasted like 40 minutes. I talked about what I wanted to study at school and why would it help the firm and why it's important that I go. They would answer things like, you don't need to leave to learn that, or we can give you the same opportunities here. But I remember distinctively, it was the only female partner there. She was sitting to my right. And she asked me, if we don't sponsor you, would you still leave? I took a second and then I confidently answered yes. Lo and behold, a few weeks later, I get the approval that I was sponsored. A few months later at a happy hour, I was talking with one of the people that was in the room with me, and he revealed that was the moment when they knew they were gonna sponsor me. All right, so to make this actionable, before your next meeting, know your BATNA and make it as strong as possible. You want to know exactly what your plan B is so you can negotiate something better than it during the meeting. Before every simulation in the class, we had to prep a whole document, and in it we had to identify what our BATNA is, and that helped tremendously. In addition, if you can make your BATNA as strong as possible, you prep yourself to be the stronger of the parties in the negotiation. Because imagine if you're willing to walk away because your plan B is better than anything they can offer, then you've already won. As they say, if you find yourself in a fair fight, you haven't planned your mission properly. And that's true in every negotiation. Real quick, hit the like button if you find this valuable. It helps me know that I'm being helpful. All right, number 2, this is arguably the most important in my opinion, and that's give them what they want. What do a cattle farmer, a venture capitalist, a Fortune 500 executive, and a TV producer all have in common? They all cite the key to success in negotiation is giving the other party what they want. And this is common sense too, right? You give someone what they want, they'll be willing to give you what you want in return, right? The problem is that we don't always know what the other party wants.
What do you want? What do you want?
Simple.
What do you want?
This is huge in relationships, not just romantic ones. We tend to negotiate and argue at the surface level, but we don't really get deep into the weeds about what the motivations of people are. So the actionable advice here is to listen more and talk less. You want to be asking a lot of questions and be patient. They might tell you what they want at the beginning, but later on in the negotiation, they might reveal what they truly desire. For example, I've been arguing with my roommates over the thermostat because I want it colder, they want it warmer. I'm trying to put it at 66, they're trying to put it at 67 and above, and we're just going back and forth. I know what they want it at 67 or above, but we went back and forth until I stopped, asked a few more questions, and found out that the heat wasn't being distributed across the house properly. So while my room was turning to a sauna, his was turning to a freezer. So I realized I had a spare space heater around and I gave it to him. And then he turned that on in his room. He didn't care about what temperature the thermostat was anymore. And that kind of resolved the negotiation right there. We both got what we wanted. I can keep it at 66 and his room doesn't have to be freezing. Sometimes halfway through the negotiation, we might realize that giving the other person what they want might not even cost us anything. And that leads us to point number 3. But before that, in the comments, tell me what you want from me so I can deliver it to you. So this one's a little bit harder to grasp, but super important. That's grow the pie, then cut it. So when most of us think about negotiations, we think of a fixed pie, and we all need to figure out how to divide it between ourselves. It's a zero-sum win-lose game, and those suck. But what if we could grow the pie before we have to split it? That means more pie for everybody. In class, we learned that in negotiations, people tend to underestimate how big the pie actually is. Even though they might win the negotiation and get like 60–70% of it, they're actually ending up with a smaller amount than they could have if they cooperated and made the pie bigger. So our final negotiation for the class, our capstone, was basically the acquisition of a wine company, which was awesome because I want to learn how to buy and sell companies. I was the acquirer, and our BATNA, remember that one, was around $8 million, which meant I was not willing to pay more than $8 million to buy this wine company. After the simulation, we learned that the sellers had theirs around $8 million also. So they were not going to sell for anything less than 8. However, when buying a company, there's a lot of other issues at stake, right? You have, will the seller stay on to help you transition it? Do they want a board seat or some partial ownership still? Are there pending lawsuits from before that you would be taking on as the new owner? This simulation had all of those. So we did a little analysis to figure out which of these issues was most important to us and how much it would technically cost us if we had to give them up. What we found out was that if the seller stayed on for 2 years, they didn't keep any ownership or board seats, and they assumed all the lawsuit liability, that was gonna be worth around $3 million to us. So what we did was present 2 packages. One for $9 million, but asking for those concessions that really saved us 3, so a total of $6 million cost. And another where we only paid them $3 million, but we gave them all the concessions. So they didn't have to stay on, they got some ownership, and then we took the liability, which cost us like $3 million. So also a total cost of $6 million. They reacted more positively to the $9 million offer. And we found out that they actually didn't really care about the other issues, that they didn't really value those at all. We went back and forth a little bit, but in the end, we agreed to a $10 million with the discount of $3 million on all the concessions on our side. So it cost us $7 million to buy the company. They got $10 million in value, and we both left winners with better situations than our BATNA. The simulation could have ended with both of us agreeing to somewhere around the $8 million range, but the pie then would have been a lot smaller. So how do you apply this? In negotiations where there are multiple issues at hand, which is most of the time, present multiple packages. In these packages, you want a different combination of the issues to see which issues they actually really care about the most. And hopefully you find out that the issues they care about the most are actually the ones that cost you the least. And that's where we can have a bigger pie across the board. Don't leave, I got a bonus principle for you, and it's super important too. And this is maintain relationships. We gotta remember that negotiations happen between people, and relationships between people can get really fragile. Life is long, the world is small, and we all need each other. You never know when you're gonna need something from someone, and when that moment comes, you'd rather that they are a friend than a foe. We've all heard these vengeful stories. A small dumb one for me is in class, in one of the simulations, one of my classmates like took my house and won the negotiation and left me out to die basically. A few weeks later, we were paired again in a different negotiation, but where I had a little more power. In that simulation, I actually took a loss, but in a way that made him lose even more. I just couldn't get over the fact that he beat me so bad last time. We're friends now, it's all good. So what can you do about this? Number 1, just be likable. People collaborate more with people they like. You can also try to frame each negotiation as just one round of many. So if you tell someone that, hey, we're gonna be doing more deals in the future, in their head, they're gonna try to be more collaborative and not fuck you over. So I want us to maintain a relationship, so make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can get notified when my next video comes out. Before every simulation, we had to prepare a whole document on the plan for the negotiation, which helped us a ton. I put a link to that checklist in the description next to my socials, so make sure you download that so you can be the best negotiator out there. See you next time.